Hello everybody to my fourth video. As promised, we're looking at adding Jenkins to the Docker server today. So to get started, what I've done, I've added some command lines for installing Docker from apt. So this is for the app repository. There we add it. Then we just do an update and we install Docker. I think that's pretty simple. The bigger change that I've made though is I've added some more SSH keys to this actual server. So what I want to do is I want to provision an SSH key for connecting the different servers in the actual infrastructure. So the idea is that Jenkins can use these SSH keys to connect to servers and do deployments rather than using my own sort of private key for everything. The other advantage of this is that I can add these SSH keys to Bitbucket just for Jenkins access, because both Bitbucket and GitHub provide you the functionality to add SSH keys for repositories just for doing builds. So instead of everybody having to use their own private keys, is that you just use those SSH keys. They're not tied to any user. They're more tied to the actual infrastructure that you use to run your system with. So what I did up here is I created some more infrastructure SSH keys in my SSH directory, and then I added them to DigitalOcean. The idea being is that they're now within DigitalOcean's infrastructure, the same as my actual private keys, my own personal private keys. The same that I did, I think, in the first video. So what happens is that we'll be adding these to the servers that we create as well. So that then what would happen at the end of it is that because we've copied these infrastructure keys to Jenkins, is that Jenkins can also access those servers the same way that we would have accessed them using our own private keys. So Jenkins can run commands on those servers. So for instance, updating a PHP app or a Java app, or maybe just doing something else like updating a database or backing up a database. So instead of last time, what I did before is I ran all of these commands while I was doing the video for instantiating the server. But as you can see, we're sort of doing quite a few things now, and I'm running those scripts in the back end while I'm recording is getting a bit long, and I don't want to bore you guys by sitting through them. So I've run all of this stuff before we started this video. And what I'm going to now show you is I'm going to show you the results of that when we go to Jenkins. So what we go, as before, we go to show, and we've got our IP address up there. You can see there's our IP address. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go to that server. We're going to go root, and we're going to access the server. And so if we go to, so what you guys see is, yeah, we've got the ID RSA and ID RSA pub. So what I did is I renamed these infrastructure, the private keys on my own local system, to IDSR, because I think just to stay to conventions on the actual Jenkins server, I changed them. And you guys will see also that these would be the correct permissions for the keys, which I set down here. So I did this just for making sure that we've got the correct permissions for the keys, because this is sort of an Ubuntu box, and Linux, if you don't have the correct permissions for SSH keys, refuses to use them. Or if you're trying to connect to a server that's got, let's say, there's the public key installed as authorized keys, is that also if those file permissions are wrong, then also Linux would refuse to use those files. So without the correct permissions on both the client side and the server side for those keys, is that you can't have an SSH connection. So this is why I did this, and that's the only changes that I've made so far. So I think the server is now complete. It's sort of exactly doing what I want. So now to give you an idea, what we're going to try and do next is we're going to next up set up Jenkins, and then we're also going to try to use a Docker build image for, I think, running a PHP application. So with that, I'll say goodbye till the next time. Cheerio!